So today we're going to talk about how to make negatives and questions with will, or making negatives and questions with will, with the word will. We've talked about how when we use will to talk about the future, we learned how to make it. We talk about the subject, which is I, you, he, she, it, we, or they, or you could say my brother, or my sister, or my mother. Will, and then you use the simple present tense of the verb to make the sentence. So, I will work today. We have the subject, it is who we're talking about, which is I. We use the word will, and then we use the simple present tense of a verb. So, work. Work is the verb. I will work today. My brother, this is the subject, will drive today. Drive is the verb. Will is the word that tells us that it's the future. My mom will buy dinner tonight. It will be a difficult day. You will need help. They will leave early. We will go to lunch early. So all of these sentences are talking about the future. They are talking about something that isn't really planned or might be planned, but we use it to talk about the future. So we learned that in the last lesson. So today we're going to talk about one of the things is how to make will negative, how to make the sentence about the future negative. So it's really easy. You keep it the same, or if you're talking about that yes, something is happening, it's the subject, which is I, you, he, she, it, we, or they, or my mother, or my father, or the bus. If it's a person or a thing, that's what comes first. Then the word will, and then we use the word not, and then the simple present form of the verb. So all we have to do to make it negative is put not in between will and the verb. So for example, we have this sentence, I will work today. To make it negative, we say I will not work today. That's how we make it negative. This next sentence, it will be a difficult day. We need to make it negative, we put not in between will and the verb. Or you could just say, you put not after will. It will not be a difficult day. You will need help. We put not after will. You will not need help. So that's how you make it negative. So we're going to do some more practice. We will go to lunch early. Now, think about how you would say this. We will not go to lunch early. So this is the negative sentence. You'll see that not is right here. We will not, we added not, in between will and the verb, which is go in this sentence. That's how we made it negative. They will leave early. We need to make it negative. We need to say, no, they are not going to leave early. They will not leave early. We put not right after will. My sister will buy dinner tonight. To make it negative, my sister will not buy dinner tonight. So let's make these sentences negative again. I will work today. I will not work today. My sister will buy dinner tonight. My sister will not buy dinner tonight. You will need help. You will not need help. Excuse me. They will leave early. They will not leave early. So this is how we make it negative. Now, using negatives or using it as the affirmative, so whether we're saying I will go to work or I will not go to work, both of these can use contractions. And remember, contractions just means words that are put together in English to make them shorter. So, for example, I will can be put together, and this is pronounced I'll. The thing to remember with pronouncing contractions for things like I would or I will or those kinds of things, all you have to do for pronunciation is pronounce it the way that you pronounce reading the subject, like the word I. You don't pronounce this ill. It doesn't change the sound. You just pronounce it like you're saying I, and you put an ul at the end. I'll. I will is I'll. You will is you'll. He will, he'll. She will, she'll. It will. This one's kind of weird. It'll. It's a little weird in English. So you'll notice that, we'll just keep going and I'll point this out after, but it will is pronounced it'll. If somebody's speaking quick in English, it'll sound like it'll. They kind of say the t really quickly. It'll. They don't really pronounce it. It'll. We will is we'll. They will is they'll. And if you say will not, that can be put together. If you're making a negative, you can say won't. This is a weird one in English because it looks kind of strange, because instead of saying like W-I and N-T, like you're saying the words together, they put an O there. So it's pronounced won't, not will not. Will not, or it's not that you pronounce, so it's will not, and to pronounce this, it's won't. Sorry, I was getting you confused. So the key to pronouncing all of these other ones, this one is you only use this if you're using the negative. But if you're using these, the key to pronouncing them is pronouncing the first part, like you, I, he, she, it'll, we'll, they'll. The key to pronouncing it is just saying it the way you would say it if it was one word. So the beginning part of this contraction is you'll. He will is he'll. So you're saying he and putting a ul at the end. He'll, she'll, it'll, we'll, they'll. So that's how you pronounce those in English. These are used a lot by English speakers, and won't is the most common, I think. I think it's not super rare, but people will only say will not when they're trying to be super clear. But if they're just talking to you, most likely when they're saying the negative, they just say won't. I won't take the bus tomorrow instead of I will not take the bus tomorrow. So we're going to practice using contractions. So I will go to the store. So we can put I and will together to make I'll. I'll go to the store. So this sentence and this sentence mean the same exact thing. We will not go to the store. We and will can be put together to say will not go to the store. Or you could put will and not together. So you could say we won't is will not, we won't go to the store. So those are some of the contractions that you can make. She will come to my party. She and will can be put together to make she'll. She'll come to my party. That's how we make it into a contraction. This sentence, they will not leave until 6. So this sentence means that in the future, they will not leave until. Until just means when it is 6. So they're not going to leave before 6. They will not leave until 6. So you can put they and will together or will and not together. Now you have to pick one or the other. You can't put they and will together and will and not together. You have to pick one or the other. So you could say they'll, by putting they and will together, they'll not leave until 6. Or you can say they won't leave until 6. So that's how you would use contractions. So here's some more contraction practice. It will not flush. Remember, you can put it and will together or will and not. It won't flush. It won't flush is will and not together. It'll not flush. This one, it's not a lot of people will say this kind of sentence in English. They usually don't use I'll not or it'll not or what's the other one? Will not. No, yeah. So it'll not and I'll not usually aren't said in English, but it's still correct. If you say it won't by putting will and not together, it won't flush, or if you say it'll not flush, they're both correct. It's just most people in English say won't instead of putting will and the subject together, the person that you're talking about, or the thing that you're talking about. So in English, most times you will hear people say won't, which is will not, instead of putting it will or I will together. Okay, this sentence, it will be okay. You can put it and will. It'll be okay. This one, it'll be okay, is what I hear a lot in English. People always will say it'll be okay. Sometimes they'll say it will be okay. But both of these are correct, and both of them mean the same thing. So either way, whatever you think is easiest is great. So now we're going to talk about how to make questions with the future tense will. So all we have to do is, like all of the questions we've learned before, will comes at the beginning, then our subject, I, you, she, he, it, they, we, and then the simple present tense of the verb. So we have a statement here, we have a sentence here. You will need help. We need to put will at the beginning. Will you need help? And then a question mark. Will you need help? And that's how we turn it into a question. Really simple. So let's practice putting some questions together. They will work together. All we have to do is put will out here. Will they work together? That's how we make it a question. It won't turn on. Now remember, won't is will not, right? Won't means will not. So instead of putting won't at the beginning, we need to get rid of the not part. So all we have to do is you need to change won't to will, and then you put it at the beginning of the sentence. Will it turn on? And that's all you need to do. He will pick me up. Will he pick me up? So you'll see that will, again, just comes at the beginning of the sentence, and then we just keep the sentence the same after that. That's all we got to do. So that's how you make questions. So here are some things that you need to remember when you're making questions with will. Do not use do, does, or did in a question with will. So for example, this sentence says, do you will help me with the first floor? If you put do here, we learned that we could say, do you need help? And that's the question form of, you need help or something like that. That's how you make it a question. But for will, you don't need to do any of that. So you don't need to put do, and you just put will at the beginning of the sentence. You don't need to add anything when you're making the question with will. No adding. You just put will at the beginning of the sentence and then say the rest of the sentence the same. Will you help me with the first floor? And remember that when you use will, you just need to make sure that will comes at the beginning of the sentence. So the other thing to remember is the subject comes after the helping verb in questions about the future. So remember how we said that will is a helping verb. The main verb is the one that's telling us what's happening, right? So if we said, when will be you done? We need to remember that even though if we change this sentence to not a question, it would say, here, let me write it out. It would say this may take a while. I just want to make sure that it's clear. You will be done, right? If it was a statement. But when we use the word like when, this is a question. It's not a yes or no question. We call it a WH question or an information question. It's a question that cannot be answered with yes or no. They're asking you to answer with a time or a place or any kind of information. So if we said, when will be you done? You need to make sure that the subject comes right after the word will, right? If you think about it, the only difference about this question is if you said, so you need to make sure you use next to it. So if you ask, when will you be done? This is the same as if you asked, will you be done? That's a yes or no question. When you're asking an information question and somebody says when or, when they say when, all that they changed is they put it before will. You don't need to change anything after that. The rest of the sentence is the same as what we just learned. Will comes before the subject, and the subject will always come after will. Whoever it is or whatever you are talking about will always come after will when you are asking a question. And the other way around, if you're making a statement, if you're just talking about something or making a negative, will always come after the subject, who it is you're talking about. So you just flip it. It's just the opposite when you're asking questions or when you're saying negatives or affirmative statements. An affirmative just means yes, So you could say, you will be done, you will not be done, and then to make it a question, will you be done? And then if you wanted to make it an information question, you would just put when before that. When will you be done? When just means like time. What time will you be done? More questions like this are, what will you eat for lunch? What is another information question. But you'll see that the sentence, will you eat lunch, you would get rid of the for part if you were just asking, will you eat lunch? But if you said, what will you eat for lunch? That's an information question. Who will pick you up? Where will you live? These are all information questions. So what is, are you going to have, a sandwich? Are you going to have chicken? That kind of thing. Who is a person? Who will pick you up? Where is a location? It's a place. So we're going to go over information questions more, but I wanted to show you this because this can get confusing when you learn how to make these questions, but then you find out that in English they can put more in front of the question to get more information about something. So, but all you need to remember is how we've learned how to make questions. That's the base part that you need. That's just the order that you'll always be putting it in. And when you're putting a when or a what or a who or a where in the question, it just comes before that yes or no question. That's all you got to focus on. So that's it for today. Let me know if you have any questions.